meters steeplechase. We're on standby for you with that. Away from that, let's take a look at tomorrow's news today, the bold newspaper, The Standard. And the headline for tomorrow, as expected, is something that happened in the House today. The cabinet to hit the road after rubber stamp, calling it like it is, because this was a very smooth process in Parliament where the 19 nominees, in spite of hundreds of memorandums sent to them on the conduct of this very cabinet that has been approved, and the pending court cases included, and of course the opposition crossing over, even the high-level details, they walked into this and walked out as cabinet secretaries. So the headline there is cabinet to hit the road after rubber stamp. And because I have a former cabinet secretary, the newspaper stays there, I would like his opinion. We're calling it like it is, cabinet to hit the road after rubber stamp. Do you think, finally, based on this headline, the president has gotten people who can work?
Well, I do not want to throw cold water on individuals who have been given opportunities to serve Kenyans. The effectiveness of any individual or the cabinet as a whole to function and to do what they're supposed to do depends on how much leeway
they're given.
They are given
by the appointing authority.
Because you can be a cabinet minister,
yes,
but you are not effective because you're not making decisions about the areas that you've been given. You can be a cabinet minister and your PS is more powerful than you are.
Yes.
You can be a cabinet minister, but you are the chairman of your parastatal has got more access than you to the powers that be and the person who has appointed you. So to the extent that those problems that I have spelled out are not there, then you can be an effective cabinet secretary.
Okay.
And because I do not know, I'm not conversant with how this particular situation is and how it is structured, I am unable to make any comment. All I can do is wish them well.
Let me ask you, did you have leeway in former president?
Absolutely, 100%.
Whatever you wanted to do in the cabinet?
That's not how it works. It is not whatever you want
to do. Okay.
It is what the cabinet has agreed.
Okay.
What you people have agreed. What you have set out as a policy that you want and the work that you want to do for Kenyans. Once you agree that this is what we want to do for Kenyans,
as the cabinet,
then there should be nobody calling you, telling you that I have sent so-and-so to give you a tender, or you have sent so-and-so so that you can, you can assist them in this way, or give so-and-so a job. Or you read about your own ministry appointments in the newspaper
the following day.
Yeah. Now, if you operate like that, then I can assure you are wasting your time.
It's not going to succeed.
It is not going to succeed.
Okay. Let's bring back the paper because there are other important stories. I see the U.S. has warned President Ruto on demonstrations tomorrow on police brutality. We are going to speak about this with the former cabinet secretary because this is something that is important and we're Kenya and Kenya is our business. But apart from that, the country's steeplechase future now lies in the hands of the small faith. Remember, she was number 3 yesterday. But the interesting thing about yesterday, number 1, number 2, and number 3 were all Kenyans. Just that we did not give her a chance in Kenya. She had to go to Bahrain. That was the most interesting thing yesterday.
Yeah, but let's at least be happy for once. Let us at least be happy that we have got a 3 there who are doing Kenya proud.
Someone says, Waziri, that if we are not careful in the next few years, even our prowess in athletics will be gone because we are not encouraging enough our athletes.
It is because, my friend, if you want to succeed, if you want to make sure that in the next Olympics, not this one, if you want to make sure that in the next Olympics, we have got a team and a substantive team that is going to make us proud, we must start planning for them now.
Okay.
We must provide for them now.
Okay.
Isitoshe, we must also look at the breadth of what we are doing in the Olympics. It has always been that we are there to do the steeplechase, we are there to do this. It is so the same thing. So we have got to plan for it and expand our team and the range of activities that we are going to present to the Olympics for the next games.
Yeah.
This depends on the effectiveness of whoever is being given the cabinet portfolio.
For sports. All right, let's take you back in history before we begin our discussion tonight because we have the headline, 8 years to the date today. The day is different, but this was the headline. Raila Odinga, exclusive interview with the Sunday Standard, said he was ready to step down in the 2017 race. Now, this was said a year before that election, but we know he went ahead and ran for that election. And in fact, there was a repeat election. But there's a very beautiful picture right below there, because the world beaters went for gold at, this was during the Rio Olympics in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. That was a beautiful picture. So the more that things change, the more they remain the same. That is back in history. The same date 8 years ago to the, no, different day. All right, away from that, back to our discussion. And you know it by now that Senator, I still call you Senator.
Great, it's my name, as I said.
All those years as a cabinet
senator, always a senator.
I call it. All right, let's go back to our discussion. I asked you what you could see that I couldn't see. But I want to go back to something before I go back to discuss the cabinet. What lessons did we learn in between 2012 to 2022 and 2022 to 2002 to 2013, and then Uhuru Kenyatta comes in and also takes it for 10 years. What lessons do you think we learned then that we may or may not be using for our good today?
I think that yesterday is very important because it teaches us lessons about what we can do tomorrow. But remember that yesterday was informed by the circumstances of yesterday. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we can only use it for historical and reference purposes. We cannot transplant yesterday's actions to today, because today we are faced by very different circumstances.
Yes.
Having said that, there are a number of things that are critical and clear. The first thing is that the citizens of a nation have to believe you. You know, you have to be believed by people so that they can then work with you,
okay,
you know, towards whatever focus. Secondly, a nation's energy has to be together and it has to be focused towards a certain end. And I'll give you a very good example, Ken. Let us say, for instance, that we are talking about jobs, because the Gen Zs are complaining about jobs. And we know that one of the biggest challenges that we have as a nation is an issue of the creation of jobs.
Employment.
If we are dealing with jobs, then it should be that from the top to the bottom, we understand this issue of joblessness, and we understand that whatever we do, we are doing it so that we can create a job. So that when an investor comes to the office, when an investor comes to Kenya, we lay out the carpet
for them.
You know, we lay out the carpet for them. Mm-hmm. It is not a question of somebody walking in and then being told, okay, we can allow you to do this, provided you lift 5% for so and so and 10% for so and so. That is not going to work. As it is, Ken, we have a crisis. Mm-hmm. We are looking at the political crisis that we have got right now. We have another bigger crisis, which is the economic crisis, a financial crisis. Yes, we pass through the bill that we paid, the debt that we paid the other day. But let us not forget, we have other debts that are coming at us. So the nation's focus should be, let's resolve this situation. Let's create these jobs that people want. Now, if you overtax people, it means that they lay off people. And laying off people is an exercise that is happening across this country at a time when people are rioting because they need jobs. Okay? Mm-hmm. Ken, the other day, I traveled, and as I was coming into Kenya, you know, you go through security, you go through the normal processes, and you get to the customs area. And a person who has flown an investor has flown for 16 hours from the US to land in Kenya, comes, clears his luggage, and goes to clear customs. In any civilized nation on earth, you will go through one area where is goods to declare, and there is another area for goods, no goods to declare.
Yes.
And people walk in.
Yes.
But as you clear your luggage as JKA, you see a kamukonji of people standing there. Mm. This is a person who has traveled for 16 hours. A person who has traveled for 8 hours. You are going to stay here for the next 1.5 hours, 2 hours, just so that somebody can go through your suitcase and see whether you have a new suit. How does that help you? And you know, and you cannot really fault the person who is manning that machine, because that's what she has been told to do.
Check this luggage.
Check this luggage. Yeah. And what are you checking? Mm-hmm. You know, these people have been checked everywhere. There is go anywhere, Ken, and tell me which airport you went to. And there was something like that as you walked out of the airport. What we should be doing is welcoming people. So when you are doing that job, you ask yourself, how many jobs am I creating by doing what I'm doing? all right? When I welcome people into Kenya, am I creating a job? Let me give you a good example of what happened the other day at that same custom. A lady is coming from India, wants to do a wedding in Kenya. You read about it.
Yes, we know about this.
You read about the story. You read the story.
Yes.
You know, how many jobs did we lose? Yeah. This wedding was eventually taken to Jaipur or wherever they took it to India.
Yeah.
And therefore, everybody who wanted to do a wedding in Kenya as a wedding destination
they
then
say,
says, I don't want to go to Kenya. How many jobs have you then lost? How many waiters were going to be employed in hotels? What is hotel occupancy? You are going to increase. What about the eggs that a farmer was going to supply to those people who have come? It is an all-inclusive movement towards the creation of jobs.
Okay, but I don't want to cut you short because what you're saying makes perfect sense. But when you hear the government, the other day the president was in Mombasa, and I don't want to make this about just the president, but we are Kenya and Kenya is our business. And he told Hersi to stand up, and Hersi confirmed that they expect even more numbers of tourism. But there was a rider as to that. They're also frustrated. Is this part of the components that are frustrating effectiveness and service delivery in Kenya? And how do we sort it out? You having been in a place where policy is made, policy is discussed. How do we sort it out? Do we sort it out by bringing in people like we see today in the cabinet, or there's something more that needs to be done?
Well, first of all, is to respect the institutions. Let's respect the institutions as they are. There is a tourism authority, there is a tourism ministry. Let's respect the institutions, and let's respect the professionals who work in those institutions. That is the first thing. Respect the institution and respect the professionals. Let them make the decisions. Secondly, let's focus. Tourism is a cash cow for us, all right? We are in a crisis. We can actually, it's a hanging fruit. By doing a few things here and there, with serious investment in that area, we can inflow tourism.
We can make that 4 million
very quickly. But it's not going to happen with that attitude at the airport. It's not going to happen if they go to the beach and there is no protection. Everybody is hanging around them. So it's again, I told you, it's a movement. When you are in there, if you say that we are going to deal with tourism, you deal with tourism holistically.
As a cabinet.
As a cabinet, as a Kenyan.
As Kenyans.
Not just as a cabinet, but as a Kenyan. And therefore, that's why I talked about our whole wananchi approach of crisis management. You know, Kenyans have got to know, we have got this situation. We are going to solve it. One of the ways is tourism. When you see a tourist, this is how you behave. That's how they have done it in Thailand. That's how they are doing it in other places.
China, Dubai.
Perfectly. There are countries, Ken, that are transporting the entire population of Kenya as tourists. So that you are hearing their numbers are 50 million. Their numbers are 30 million.
There's something they're doing right.
There is something they are doing right. Part of it is what I'm telling you. That the whole approach is such that as a nation, we know what we want. And this is where we are going to go with it. You know, we want better hotels. We want better tourist facilities. We want people who respect tourists. That's part of it. And tourism is not just about Wazungus. Tourism is also about Africans. It's also about Kenyans, you know, themselves who are doing this. So the whole thing about focus and the way we manage that focus. And thirdly, it is important for us to appreciate that every person working everywhere must ask themselves, why am I here? If you are serving as a PS, if you are serving as a cabinet minister, if you are serving as an official in the government, if you are serving as a head of customs at the airport, you must ask yourself, why am I here? You know, you cannot be there to serve yourself if you ask for people that you serve in the public service. If you are going to serve the public service, go and serve the public service. If you want to do business, then leave the public service.
Remain outside.
Remain outside do business with the government.
Unfortunately, what has happened is it's become a career to go into government to do business. But I want to ask you this. With what's happening in Kenya currently, and I want to focus on tomorrow, how much confidence are we inspiring in these sectors to begin with? The Gen Z, the youth are supposed to go on protests tomorrow, something that has happened in the last 6-7 weeks. Are we inspiring confidence? Is it time that we said enough is enough with the protests? Let's begin building this nation. Have we gotten to that point?
Well, let's let me go back just one step, if you allow, and give me 1 minute to explain it. Number one is that a protest is a constitution right of every Kenyan. There are countries in this world, Ken, where there is a protest virtually every day. If you go to Paris, there is almost a protest happening all the time.
You are guaranteed to meet a crowd.
Yeah, of people protesting about one thing or another.
Yes.
It has not stopped confidence in the French government or in the French financial institutions. It has not stopped. What we cannot do is to say that because there is a tendency for protesters to be threatened with violence, then on the altar of violence, we are going to stop a provision in the Constitution. We are going to stop people's right to protest, people's right to assemble because there is a threat of violence. That cannot be.
Okay.
It is the responsibility of the government in place to ensure that protests happens in peace. It is a responsibility of the security apparatus to ensure that those who are protesting in peace are protected from those who do not want them to protest in peace. It is a provision that you cannot take away from people, under threat, because it is not right. And it will not work, because if you start giving away your right, because somebody has blackmailed you with some element of violence, or that if you go and protest, there will be violence, it is your duty to make sure that there is no violence. It is my duty to protest, because it is my constitutional right to do so.
Yeah.
So to that extent, first we agree that that is the correct position.
Now that
the second,
I know you want to explain the second point.
No, let me tell you the second point.
Still on the protest.
On the protest.
Yes.
On the protest.
Okay.
The second provision is this.
Yes.
That protests are supposed to be peaceful. And what we saw in the first, in the beginning of this protest, and we saw the Gen Zs in the streets, what we saw was very peaceful demonstrations. And I'll give you an example. I can't remember the day when at Nyayo Stadium, there was a massive crowd of people, of Gen Zs there, with music and so on and so forth. Huge crowd of people.
Yeah. That was a celebration of life of the heroes.
Who walked in the entire streets of Nairobi. There was not a single incident of violence. So we know, and we have seen it. We have seen that people can protest in peace.
It's possible.
It is possible. But violence begets violence, and what we don't want is violence in our nation, because it is violence that now is going to create the problem you have just said.
Okay.
The provision, the confidence in a nation is not destroyed by people protesting. On the contrary, the fact that people can protest in peace creates confidence in the nation. It is the violence that can be informed on those protests that is going to defeat the confidence that you create.
I know I had asked you about that, but I want to take you back, because today we are reporting that the Acting Inspector General of Police has held a press conference earlier today and told the world that we are going to comply with the law. We are going to avoid the tear gas canisters and avoid the water cannons and avoid the rubber bullets, because we are complying with the court order. First, I'm thinking, did we have to go to that extent to look for a court order for you to comply? Secondly, I'm thinking, where is this violence coming from? Because we have covered these protests and they're peaceful until someone throws a tear gas. Do we have to get to a place that we have to go to the court to ask for protection as citizens of this country?
Well, first of all, Ken, it is shocking for somebody to actually say that I was given a court order to do my job. It's like you telling me that you have got a court order to read news, because that's your job. Why are you telling me about court orders to do your job? Your job is to make sure that the country is peaceful.
Yes.
Your job is to protect protesters so that they can protest peacefully. All right? Your job is to provide security to the country, to their shops, to the motorbikers, to everybody who is in that street. That's your job. So when you tell me that you have got a court order,
And
what do you mean you have a court order?
And on that basis, you now want to comply.
I mean,
which means in the absence of that court order, what happens?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit buffering. And I'm assuming that because I have a lot of respect and time for our police forces, and I do hope that and pray that tomorrow is going to be a peaceful day. I would just appeal to fellow Kenyans to realize, whatever side of the divide you are in, that this is our nation.
Yeah.
This is our country. There is no other nation we are going to go to. And therefore, it is incumbent upon each one of us not only to be peaceful, but to ensure that those with us are also peaceful. It is to ensure that those of you who can go to places, and you are given big rungus, and you are told to go and mess up peaceful strikes or peaceful assemblies, is for you to know, not now, but in future. The people you are being told to go and rough up are your own brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. The people you are told to go and beat up are your own brothers and sisters. You should look the person telling you to go and beat another Kenyan in the eye and ask them why they are not there themselves to go and do the job that they are telling you to go and do. And therefore, like other Kenyans, my appeal is that let's create hope in our nation by doing two things. By acting to make sure that what the protesters are protesting about is addressed, and addressed squarely, and making sure that the protests that we do make are peaceful ones.
And it can't be addressed by violence. You told me earlier that you cannot sit and hope that this violence is going to give you a solution, that somehow this problem is going to go away, that somehow all these concerns that have been raised by the Gen Z are going to go away. And it reminds me of a tweet that I'm going to look for as you respond to this. But I saw the other day, and I'm using this example because they almost began at the same time, Bangladesh and Kenya. We see where Bangladesh is. I would not wish any day that we get to that point, but in reference to the way police acted in Bangladesh. At one point, I even saw them removing their uniform, remaining with their tees inside, and joining the crowd. Is that something that we can say? Because if it's peaceful and it's for the nation, it needs to be for the nation.
Kenya is not Bangladesh. Let's start from there.
Yes.
All right? Kenya is not Bangladesh. Bangladesh has got its own issues, and we have our own issues. Bangladesh has got its own way of resolving their own problems, and we have our way as Kenyans of resolving our problems. Our nation has always been peaceful, and our nation has always been resilient. And we believe, and I believe personally, that Kenya is a resilient nation. And it's a nation that can solve our problems and solve them peacefully. We have got a history of doing so. Even when we look like we are going to heads and numbers, we have always been able to come back and say to ourselves, this is not the way to go. Mm-hmm. And no single individual, keeping in mind that there is not a single individual who is more important than our nation. No person in our country can claim more importance than the importance and peace of our country. To that extent, therefore, I think that people need we need a paradigm shift. There is need for a paradigm shift, and to say to ourselves, we did not get where we are simply as a matter of course. We didn't get here as a matter of course. We got here because there are certain things that we are supposed to have done. There are certain ways we are supposed to behave, and we don't. Yep. That's why we are where we are. So to get out of where we are, to resolve this problem, it calls for those in service, those who are serving, those who are in government, those who are in service. It doesn't what level of service you are in. It calls for those in service to re-examine themselves. Because we have to go back and ask ourselves, am I serving a Kenyan? And am I doing it the way I'm supposed to do? If you are a board chairman, and you are a board chairman, say, for example, for the Kenya Airports Authority, all right? And we are supposed to be providing security at the Kenya Airports Authority. And people have been given tenders and so on to provide, all right? To provide that security in there. Are you then going to going to tell them, in this tender you have been given, I want 5%. So
otherwise, we'll take it away.
Otherwise, we are going to take it away from you.
Give it to someone.
All right? We'll give it to someone. I'm not saying, I'm not being specific. I'm just giving an example.
I understand.
I just give an example. Yes. How much are you helping Kenya? Now, Ken, it's no secret. It is across the whole country, and even international investors are talking about it now. That if you want to invest in Kenya, there will be somebody waiting for you to ask you for some sort of consideration, some sort of money before you do so. I think this is an issue that we must address head on. and accept that we have got a problem, we have got a crisis like that one, and we need to address ourselves to it.
Head on.
Head on, completely.
There's a tweet here. I want to move to other issues, but there's a tweet here from Ndungu Wainaina. I think Ndungu Wainaina is in the civil society, and today again, we're reporting that the civil society joined the young people in support of the protest, even as the president warned against violence tomorrow, which cuts across. So they're saying there are 4 demands. Firmly reset the unjust, corrupt, and inefficient government. Secondly, resolute accountability and the rule of law and policy. Third, aggressive, competitive, and friendly pro-growth economic policy. And finally, uncompromising, effective, and efficient public service delivery. Is this what we need?
I agree with him. I would totally agree. There is nothing I would remove. From that one. The only thing I would add is that in addition to the issues that the gentleman has raised, and just government, I think transparency is a key one. But I think that governance, strict governance, transparency works with strict governance. Because what does it mean? It means, therefore, it means if you are completely transparent, and I had talked about the institutions of governance. Yeah. And if you are allowing for those institutions, and the people who are manning those institutions are clear, it means that when you pay your taxes, you are sure that my taxes are going to go towards where they are supposed to be. But the reason why I'm saying there is one more to add here is that the economic and the economic policy and the financial monetary system that you create for yourself is also in response to the problem that you are facing in your own nation. Okay?
Yeah.
What am I trying to say here, my friend? I am saying that you can get economic growth even at 7-8%. But that economic growth is not transferring itself to growth also in all other sectors. So there has got to be all classes of people. So that you want to make sure that an 8% or 7% economic growth transforms itself both from the top, but also meanders in a multiplier process way, all the way to the bottom of the pyramid.
So that they feel the effects.
That is proper economic growth. Yeah. So when you say that we want pro-growth, we want pro-growth distributed equally. Growth distributed equally, because growth that is not distributed does not affect. And finally, I would also like to say something about that economic policy. Let me give you a very small example, my friend. In some countries you go and street foods. I don't want to talk above. I want to talk to very small issues.
My level here.
Very basic development. And mine too. Things that we can understand very. Let me give you a very good example.
Yes.
Today I passed by KIST in Kiambu.
Yes.
All right? The university there.
Yes.
And I watched the university students as they were out there at the gate, being served by ladies in kiosks and so on and so forth, from a pay, from a what, all sorts of things. Now, one of the reasons why those people are there is because those mama chakulas and mama chapatis are seen as a nuisance. Yet, these are people who are providing a very good service. Suppose, my brother Ken, the KIST people, were to say them to themselves, these people are providing a very good opportunity. Let's get them inside here.
Yeah.
Let's give them very clean facilities.
Let's make it formal.
Yeah. Let them sit here in very well-paved areas, very nice chairs, very clean places where all these university students can come and eat street food.
Yeah.
You solve many problems.
A lot of them.
First of all, you solve the problem of people you give them dignity. You give the students who are eating their dignity. You give the women who are selling those chapatis dignity. You give them a clean environment which reduces your health bill, by the way, because these people are eating good food, all right? And it creates circumstances because not just the students are going to eat there. In very many countries, street food is fantastic. But the reason why we see street food here as a problem, as a nuisance, is because we don't see it as a business opportunity. Pro-growth, pro-economic, pro-business, philosophies and policies are the ones that turn those things around. And that's what we have to do. We have to realize that the primary business person that we want to promote is not Coca-Cola.
No.
It is not Microsoft.
No.
It is the people who are working in Kamukunji. It is those kiosks that you see in Kibera. It is these people you are seeing in the street starting their own small businesses. That is the business of Kenya. That is the people we must first promote, protect, and clean, you know, and give them clean environments and everything. And I'm happy, by the way, you know, I'm happy that in some instances, I have seen, for example, in Nairobi, there are places where I have seen now kiosks being cleaned up. I have seen some very well placed up. And you can see it's a place where even a tourist, can walk in and clean up. So it is not instant mathematics. It is not complicated. It is things that we can do provided you went into business, into government, not to go and enrich yourself, but to make those people enrich themselves.
Now that you've mentioned this, 4 days of approval hearings, one thing kept coming up. The former cabinet secretaries, everyone's wealth grew by 50 to 100 or more %. And yet there is no corresponding growth in the people they should be working for. That's an indictment. I'll not ask you that question, but I want to go to a related issue to that. Where is the opposition in the whole of this equation right now? Where is the opposition? We have 4 inside there. Where are they? Is by a single act of bringing them in the cabinet opposition dead? Where are these people now?
Okay, that's a big one in the room, if you ask me, and it's a big one in Kenya at the moment. The truth of the matter is this: what is the purpose of opposition? The purpose of opposition is to oversight government, is to make sure that government stays on its toes. What is the other purpose of the opposition? Is to be an alternative government, that is government in waiting. They are supposed to provide with us even shadow cabinet ministers who are supposed to shadow those in government. So it follows without saying then that it is not possible for you to be both in government and also be the opposition. That is not tenable. It is not possible. All right? Let's start from there. It is not possible. And even if you tell us so, and even if you pretend to be so, you will only be telling yourself, because the rest of us will not believe it. All right? Now, let me just give an overrider here, that I have tremendous respect for my elder brother, you know, the Honorable Raila Odinga. I have tremendous respect for him. And when I say this, I don't want you to then start saying this, you know, he's criticizing Mzee. But he is such a good and able politician that when we say this, I don't think that it is something that he's going to take offense about. It is the truth. It is the justifiable position to take. And I think that we have only 2 choices. Either A, that the opposition that is left in government, you know, the other parties who are not in government, close ranks and form themselves into a viable opposition. Or we outside organize them ourselves into an opposition outside of government, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Because there is no way Kenyans can operate without a government. In fact, Ken, it is in the interest of an existing government, it is in the interest of a government in power that there be opposition. It is in your interest. If I was in government, I would want to have an opposition.
A voice separate from yours.
That's a voice separate from mine.
Language.
Yeah, so because we cannot trust, we cannot base the movement forward in terms of our political movement, in terms of our economic movement, on the basis of the goodwill of man. That we learned a long time ago is not going to happen. So it must be on the goodwill of checked men. So to the extent that that is the purpose of the opposition, then it is not possible for the current situation is not tenable.
Okay.
And I believe that it is something that we must address, and I believe that those of us who are not in government must honestly begin to organize ourselves so that in the event that in parliament they cannot be able to viably oppose or oversight government, then those of us outside must begin to make our voices through the fourth estate and so on, and act as the opposition to the government.
Is it possible, CS, that they can be in and out at the same time?
It is not possible. That is precisely what I've been saying.
So what are they telling us?
That is precisely what I've been saying. It is not possible for you to be in government and also
is
be opposition.
Is it not possible and you don't want to believe them?
And Ken, by the way, I see no shame in you saying, I am no longer in the opposition. I am now in government.
Have crossed over.
I have crossed over.
Like when
I'm in government.
Opio Wandai attempted to do today,
Yeah.
Because he pledged loyalty to the president and said, let me repeat, His Excellency, the president. Then he said, let me repeat, Dr. PhD, William Ruto. So it's not wrong. You can pledge it. But tell me, is it possible that now the remaining part of Azimio, ODM in Azimio, will indeed be in the opposition, or it's hoodwinking the public? They want to have their cake and
it is not in my place to even profess to.
But you can see.
No. Hold on. It is not in my place to have any iota of knowledge about how ODM wants to organize themselves, because I'm not.
You're not part of ODM.
I'm not part of ODM, and I do not want to speak either for or against our brothers in ODM. But what I can say is that I repeat, there is no shame in saying we are now in government. And therefore, you guys organize yourselves. We have left you. You are now the opposition people. Organize yourselves. If you are not enough, then those outside, those sitting out there who understand a bit of government, can, in a different way, because I can't go to parliament and say that I'm oversighting government in parliament. But for sure, I can come to this show and say this provision and this way that they are doing, this is wrong. And it should be done this way. Because that's the other thing. You are supposed to provide alternative ways of doing what the government is doing. How are you going to provide? Criticize. Don't just criticize. Give alternatives. So how are you going, Ken, to provide an alternative way to the way that you are doing it?
If you don't have.
What am I missing here? Okay. So clearly, we have a situation, we have a unique situation in our country where the opposition has been depleted. All right, the opposition has been depleted, and those in opposition, quote unquote, those now who are claiming to be opposition, even they themselves don't believe in they are in opposition. So clearly, we need to redefine, who is the opposition in Kenya. And there are political parties that are still in the opposition. So those are the ones who should organize themselves. And those in government should simply say, people, let's be honest.
Including the person I want to ask you about next. It's apparent there's trouble in paradise. What do you read from the body language of the president? I know today they were in Embu, if I'm not wrong, together. But what do you read about what's happening in the government, especially with the DP and the president? That could be a form of opposition in the government, Because the DP, when he's alone, he speaks a lot. And when he's inside, he keeps quiet. That's the truth.
Ken, we have just been talking here some very serious issues. We have been talking some very serious economic issues and how to uplift Kenya and what have you. What you are asking me to do now is me to talk about other people's homes. All right, other people's homes.
Don't you think it's
important? You can. How can you come to my house and start telling me how I run my house and how we organize ourselves between me, my wife, my family, my what? It's not my business. How the UDA people are organizing themselves.
As Kenyan.
It is not my business.
Even as a Kenyan?
As far as I'm concerned, we will simply be reading how efficient, inefficient, or otherwise that these people are. As far as we are concerned, it is symptoms. We see it from what they do, from their activities we can tell. Are these people together or not together? Can they be able to unify Kenya? Because if you can't unify yourselves, how do you unify?
If you can't start from your house.
If your house is not united, how do you unite everybody else? So I think you're asking me to repeat the obvious. Once Chikuku was asked in Parliament whether Kanu was dead, and he says I said, I can't remember which one. But he said that I'm not going to substantiate the obvious. In this case, my brother, you're asking me to substantiate the obvious.
It's not working. It's too early.
Honestly, are you honestly asking me that question?
Your cabinet.
Are you asking me that question? It looks like a lion. It is roaring like a lion. It is running like a lion.
It is a lion.
And you are still asking me whether it is a lion.
It could be a cheetah. I'm wondering, why did you give the example of a lion and not a duck? Is there a specific reason why you didn't give?
Because Kenyans know more about a lion
than ducks.
Than ducks.
Oh, really?
Give people examples that they understand. If you ask your mother about a duck, She may not quite click what a duck is. If you ask her about a lion,
she knows that.
On the other hand, everybody knows about a lion.
I think you're talking about Simba Imerudi.
But more seriously, my friend,
yes.
I think that for me, and I'm very, very honest, I'm very serious about this. For me, how they relate, how the UDA people are working amongst themselves is their problem.
But it affects
their problem. Let me tell you. Therefore, once we know how they are behaving, it is for us to provide the alternative to that kind of crisis. That is what I was telling you earlier. That is why an opposition should exist that says, when we run our government, all right, this is not how we are going to run our government. That's as simple as it is. And therefore, what I'm saying is that for too long, we have focused on something that is not working. Let us now begin to form and focus on something that is working.
Okay. It's about 15 minutes to the top of the hour, and just a